The soft hum of machines filled the circular room where Nara lay strapped to a metal table. Her luminescent skin, normally a brilliant azure, had faded to a dull gray. 63 days of captivity had weakened her, but her spirit remained unbroken. "Increase dosage by 12%, ordered Dam as he observed her vital signs on the monitor. His pale green skin wrinkled around his three eyes as he frowned at the readings. "Subject continues to resist the compound." Nara turned her face away from the chief researcher. The Vortec had ambushed her ship while she traveled between star systems. As a celestial, her natural abilities made her valuable, too valuable to kill, but too dangerous to leave free. The door slid open with a hiss. Two lab assistants entered, one carrying a tray of injection vials filled with glowing purple liquid. The sight made Nara's stomach tighten. The desire injections, as the guards called them, forced her body to produce excessive amounts of empathic pheromones. Each dose burned worse than the last. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse from screaming during yesterday's procedure. "My body cannot take more." Dam ignored her plea, adjusting settings on the medical console. "Your species can regenerate cellular damage at remarkable rates. Our tests show you can withstand at least triple the current dosage." The first assistant pressed a cold metal device against Nara's neck. She clenched her teeth, bracing for the pain. When the injection fired, it felt like molten metal entering her veins. Her body arched against the restraints as the compound spread through her system. "Pheromone levels rising," reported the second assistant, watching a screen that measured Nara's biological output. "Still below target threshold." Dam nodded. "Administer the second dose." Nara closed her eyes, retreating to the mental sanctuary she had created to survive. In her mind, she returned to the crystal forests of her homeworld, where light filtered through transparent trees that chimed softly in the breeze. The memory provided brief escape as another injection sent fire through her blood. "Remarkable," murmured Dam, studying the readings. "Heart rate elevated but stable. Prepare the third dose." "Sir," objected the first assistant, "protocol suggests waiting between." "I did not ask for your opinion," Dam cut him off. "The military expects results. 3 other research teams have failed to weaponize celestial pheromones. I will not be the fourth." Nara's skin flashed crimson, a warning sign her body was reaching its limits. The Vortec wanted to use her natural abilities as a biological weapon. Celestials could naturally influence the emotional states of nearby beings. With the right chemical enhancements, the Vortec believed they could create a compound that would render enemy forces helpless with artificial desire and emotion. The third injection was worse than the others combined. Nara's mental barriers collapsed as the pain overwhelmed her. Her skin began cycling through colors rapidly: violet, gold, crimson, emerald. As her control slipped away, "Pheromone production at 86% of target," announced the second assistant excitedly. "That's our highest reading yet." Dam allowed himself a rare smile. "Excellent. Collect samples quickly." The assistants moved efficiently, using specialized equipment to harvest the invisible pheromones now filling the air. Even with their protective suits, they moved with unusual haste and coordination, affected by the trace amounts penetrating their gear. Nara felt violated as they extracted her forced emissions. Worse was knowing what the Vortec planned to do with them. The compound would be refined and distributed as a weapon to subjugate other species. When the collection finished, Dam approached the table. "You see, cooperation makes things easier for everyone." "I did not cooperate," Nara replied, her voice stronger despite her exhaustion. "You forced my body to respond." "That is not the same thing." Dam's expression hardened. "Semantics. Tomorrow we begin Phase 2 testing with live subjects. Your pheromones will be administered to prisoners to measure behavioral changes." "They will suffer," Nara said. "Artificial emotional manipulation causes permanent psychological damage." "That is precisely the point," Dam replied coldly. "An enemy consumed by overwhelming desire cannot fight effectively." After the researchers left, Nara was moved back to her cell, a transparent cube that allowed the guards to observe her constantly. The effects of the injections lingered, making her skin pulse with unwanted energy. She curled into a corner, trying to rebuild her mental defenses. Guard shifts changed. Nara watched their routines carefully, as she had done every day. The night guard, Tech, was less cruel than the others. He sometimes spoke to her as a person rather than a test subject. "They pushed you hard today," Tech observed, sliding a food tray through the small opening in her cell. "You should eat to regain strength." Nara approached cautiously. "Why do you care if I recover? So they can hurt me again tomorrow." Tech glanced at the security cameras, then whispered, "Not all Vortex support what happens here. Some believe Celestials should be respected, not exploited." Hope flickered briefly in Nara's chest, but experience had taught her caution. Words mean nothing without action. Tech nodded solemnly. "True." He hesitated, then added, "There are rumors of humans arriving on the station soon. A diplomatic mission." Humans. Nara had heard stories of the species from distant Earth. They were new to interstellar travel, less technologically advanced than the Vortec, but surprisingly adaptable. "Yes. First official contact between our peoples," Tech explained. "Security will be increased, but also distracted." Nara understood the hidden message. A distraction might create opportunity. She felt a tiny spark of hope, quickly hidden as her skin briefly flashed yellow before she controlled it. That night, as the station's artificial lighting dimmed to simulate night, Nara focused on healing her body as best she could. The injections had taken a severe toll, but her celestial physiology slowly repaired the damage. If an opportunity for escape appeared, she would need all her strength. In her dreams, she saw unfamiliar stars and a planet with vast blue oceans. Earth, perhaps, though she had never seen it. Something about the vision felt important, a premonition her people sometimes experienced in times of great need. "Help is coming," she whispered to herself as she drifted between sleep and wakefulness. "I must endure until then." Lieutenant Hoon stepped off the shuttle onto Vortex Station with measured steps. As the first human diplomatic team to visit the station, every movement was recorded by hovering camera drones. Behind him, 5 other human representatives followed, their matching blue uniforms standing out against the Vortex gray architecture. "Welcome to Central Research Station," said a tall Vortex official with elaborate markings on his face. "I am Director Cole. We are honored to host Earth's representatives." Hoon bowed slightly, following the protocol briefing he had studied. "The honor is ours, Director. Earth looks forward to establishing peaceful relations with the Vortex Confederacy." Cole's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "Your quarters have been prepared in the diplomatic wing. We will begin formal discussions tomorrow after you have rested." As the humans were escorted through the station's curved corridors, Hoon noticed subtle differences from the schematics they had been provided. Certain passageways were blocked by security fields not shown on their maps. Guards stood at junctions that should have been ordinary hallways. "Is your entire station dedicated to research?" asked Hoon casually as they passed a heavily secured door. Cole's middle eye twitched. "We conduct various scientific studies. Nothing that would interest diplomats." Hoon nodded but made a mental note. His role as security liaison gave him reason to be observant, but there was another purpose to his presence on this mission. Earth's intelligence service had intercepted fragmented transmissions about biological weapons research. His secret assignment was to verify these reports without compromising the diplomatic mission. That evening, the Vortex hosted a reception in the station's Grand Observation Hall. Transparent walls revealed the stunning nebula outside, swirling with purple and gold gases. Servers circulated with exotic foods and drinks, while musicians played haunting melodies on crystal instruments. Hoon mingled professionally, but his attention kept drifting to the eastern section of the station. Something pulled at his awareness, a strange feeling he couldn't explain. 20 years in Earth's special forces had taught him to trust his instincts. "Are you enjoying the music, Lieutenant?" asked a female Vortex wearing science division markings. "It's beautiful," Hoon replied. "I'm Hoon of Earth." "Lena," she introduced herself. "I work in biochemistry. Your species fascinates me. Your neurological pathways are quite different from ours." "How would you know that?" Hoon asked, keeping his tone curious rather than suspicious. Lena's skin paled slightly. "From the medical data your government shared, of course, for compatibility purposes." Before Hoon could probe further, Director Cole announced a toast. As attention turned to the center of the room, Hoon noticed a service door left unattended. Without hesitation, he slipped through it. The corridor beyond was dimly lit and utilitarian. Hoon moved silently, his training taking over as he navigated through maintenance tunnels. The strange pulling sensation grew stronger, guiding him eastward. An alarm suddenly blared. "Security breach in Sector 7, announced the station system. Hoon ducked into a maintenance closet as guards rushed past. Through the small window in the door, he watched them checking rooms systematically. They weren't looking for him specifically. Something else had triggered the alarm. When the corridor cleared, Hoon continued his exploration. He found a terminal in an empty monitoring station and quickly bypassed its security using techniques developed by Earth's Cyber Division. The screen displayed Project Desire with restricted access warnings. Hoon's translator implant converted vortex script as he scrolled through files. His eyes widened at images of a glowing being in clear distress. The creature's skin shifted colors as various substances were injected into its body. "Celestial subject continues to resist conditioning," read one report. "Increased dosage recommended despite risk of permanent cellular damage." Hoon had heard legends of Celestials, a rare spacefaring species known for their empathic abilities and luminescent skin. They were peaceful explorers who avoided conflict and rarely engaged with military powers like the Vortec. Further reading revealed the horrifying truth. The Vortec were developing a biochemical weapon using manipulated celestial pheromones. The compound could overwhelm enemy forces with artificial emotions, rendering them unable to fight or even think clearly. A floor plan showed the location of the containment area where the Celestial was held. It wasn't far from his current position, but heavily guarded. The terminal suddenly went dark. "Unauthorized access detected," said a computerized voice. "Security alerted." Hoon quickly erased evidence of his presence and slipped back into the maintenance tunnels. He needed to return to the reception before his absence was noticed. As he made his way back, the strange pulling sensation intensified briefly, almost like a silent call for help. Hoon paused, focusing on the feeling. It seemed to brush against his mind like a feather. "I'll find you," he promised silently, not knowing if his thought could be received. Back at the reception, Hoon rejoined his team smoothly. Director Cole approached minutes later, appearing slightly agitated. "We had a minor security issue," Cole explained. "Nothing serious, but we may need to postpone tomorrow morning's tour." "I understand completely," Hoon replied calmly. "Security must come first." Later that night, alone in his quarters, Hoon reviewed what he had learned. The Vortec were violating multiple interstellar treaties by developing emotional weapons and imprisoning a sentient being. He needed to gather concrete evidence before reporting back to Earth. More importantly, he needed to find a way to help the imprisoned Celestial. Hoon accessed his secure communication device, ostensibly to send a routine update to Earth. Hidden within the message was a request for information about Celestials, their biology, abilities, and potential vulnerabilities to Vortec containment systems. As he prepared for sleep, the strange pulling sensation returned briefly. This time, Hoon was certain it wasn't his imagination. The Celestial was reaching out somehow, perhaps sensing a potential ally. 3 days, he whispered to the empty room. "Give me 3 days to find a way." As the station's lights dimmed for the night cycle, Hoon began planning his next move. Tomorrow, he would need to gather more information while maintaining his diplomatic cover. The Celestial prisoner had already endured months of torture. Soon, the Vortec would have their weapon, and the suffering would spread to countless others. The diplomatic meetings dragged through their second day. Hoon maintained his attentive expression while his mind worked on the problem of the imprisoned Celestial. The Vortec representatives spoke at length about trade agreements and cultural exchange, but carefully avoided any mention of their military research. Lieutenant Hoon, Director Cole addressed him suddenly. Your security expertise would be valuable. Would you care to examine our standard containment protocols? Hoon kept his surprise hidden. I would be honored. This unexpected opportunity might give him access to restricted areas. The two other human security officers gave him subtle nods. They would handle diplomatic protection in his absence. Cole led Hoon through a series of security checkpoints. At each one, the vortex identification granted them passage deeper into the station. The architecture changed from the elegant public spaces to utilitarian research corridors. Our containment systems are primarily designed for hazardous materials, Cole explained as they walked. But the principles apply to all security measures. Hoon noticed they were heading toward the eastern section, the same direction where he had felt the strange pulling sensation. He measured his breathing carefully, maintaining a professional demeanor despite his growing tension. Do you ever contain living specimens? Hoon asked casually. Cole's middle eye narrowed slightly. Occasionally, for medical research. All ethical guidelines are strictly followed. They turned a corner and entered a monitoring center with screens displaying various sealed chambers. Most contained equipment or biological samples, but Hoon immediately noticed one chamber that was different. Though the screen showed only an empty room, something about the feed seemed artificial. What's contained there? He asked, pointing to the suspicious screen. Merely atmospheric testing equipment, Cole replied too quickly. Not particularly interesting. A junior vortex scientist rushed into the room, his skin flushed with agitation. Director, we have a situation in Laboratory 7 that requires your immediate attention. Cole hesitated, looking between the scientist and Hoon. I can wait here, Hoon offered helpfully. No, Cole decided. Our tour is nearly complete anyway. I'll have an escort return you to the diplomatic wing. After Cole hastily departed with the scientist, a guard arrived to escort Hoon back. As they walked, Hoon noticed a maintenance access panel identical to the ones he had used during his previous exploration. He pretended to stumble, bumping into the guard. My apologies, Hoon said as he steadied himself, discreetly palming the guard's access card during the brief contact. Once returned to the diplomatic wing, Hoon waited until the station's night cycle began. His colleagues were attending a cultural performance that would last for hours. The timing was perfect. Using the stolen access card and his previous knowledge of the maintenance tunnels, Hoon made his way toward Laboratory 7. The pulling sensation returned, stronger than before, guiding him like an invisible beacon. A security patrol forced him to hide in a ventilation shaft for nearly 20 minutes. When they passed, he continued his careful progress through the dimly lit passages. Finally, he reached a maintenance access point that, according to his mental map, should open near the suspicious chamber. The panel slid open silently. Hoon emerged into a narrow corridor with a single door at the end. The door had multiple security measures, but the stolen access card combined with techniques from his special operations training allowed him to bypass them. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a chamber much different from what had been shown on the monitoring screen. The walls glowed with a soft blue light designed to neutralize certain wavelengths. In the center, suspended in a containment field, floated a being unlike any Hoon had ever seen. Her skin shifted colors like the aurora on Earth's poles, currently a muted amber with pulses of deep red. Her form was humanoid but more slender, with elongated fingers and large, expressive eyes. Those eyes locked onto Hoon with immediate intensity. Who are you? She whispered, her voice musical despite her obvious weakness. Her skin pulsed amber with caution. The moment Hoon stepped fully into the room, he felt a wave of sensation wash over him. His heart raced and his mind filled with competing emotions. Attraction, protectiveness, fear, and desire all mingled together unnaturally. He staggered, gripping the wall for support as he realized he was experiencing the effects of the manipulated pheromones. "I'm Lieutenant Hoon of Earth," he managed to say, fighting through the disorienting effect. Unlike the Vortec, his human physiology processed the compounds differently, allowing him to maintain some clarity. "I'm not here to harm you." The Celestial's eyes widened. Her skin shifted, flashes of blue breaking through the amber. "Human," she said, as if testing the word. "Your mind feels different." Hoon focused on controlling his breathing, pushing back against the artificial emotions. "What's your name? How long have you been held here?" "I am Nera," she replied. "They captured me 6 cycles ago. The injections, they force my body to produce what they want." Her form trembled with the effort of speaking. Hoon approached slowly, examining the containment field controls. "I want to help you escape, Nera, but I need to understand what they've done to you." For the first time since her capture, Nera sensed genuine concern rather than calculation. The human's mental presence felt solid amid the chaos of emotions her pheromones usually created in others. She reached out tentatively with her mind, establishing a fragile telepathic connection. The human gasped as their thoughts linked. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, withdrawing slightly. "This is easier than speaking." "It's okay," Hoon reassured her, adjusting to the strange sensation. "It's just unexpected." Through their connection, Nera shared flashes of her captivity. The painful injections, the experiments, and the Vortec plans to weaponize her biological emissions. Hoon showed her his own purpose and his determination to help. "The desire compounds in your system," Hoon said, checking the medical readouts. "They're at dangerous levels." "DAM increases the dosage daily," Nora explained. "My body cannot sustain this much longer." Suddenly, they both heard footsteps approaching. Nara's skin flashed with panic. "It's Dam," she whispered. "He performs night tests when other staff are absent." Hoon quickly moved to the door controls. "I'll return tomorrow with a plan. Can you endure one more day?" Nara's form straightened with newfound hope. "Yes, but be careful. The compounds affect you differently, but not completely." As the footsteps grew closer, Hoon slipped out through the maintenance access. The last thing he saw was Nera's skin briefly glowing with a pure blue light, a color he somehow understood meant hope. Hoon slipped back to his quarters, his mind racing with plans. The diplomatic meetings would conclude tomorrow evening, leaving little time to save Nera. He needed both a strategy and allies. After careful consideration, he approached Lin, the quietest member of the human delegation. "I need your help," Hoon whispered, explaining what he had discovered. Lin's background as a medical officer made her ideal for this mission. Biological weapons and imprisonment of a sentient being. Lin said, shaking her head. "We have to help her." Together, they studied the station schematics and security rotations. Their best opportunity would come during the system's maintenance cycle scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. For 30 minutes, security protocols would reset, creating brief gaps in coverage. "The Celestial, Nera, needs medical assistance," Lin reminded him. "From what you've described, those compounds could kill her if we attempt to move her." Hoon nodded. "Can you create something to neutralize the effects temporarily?" Lin thought for a moment. "Maybe. Human biochemistry seems resistant to the compounds. If I can synthesize the enzyme that protects us, it might help her." Morning brought the final round of diplomatic meetings. Hoon participated while Lin worked in her quarters, converting their medical supplies into a potential treatment for Nera. The hours stretched endlessly as Hoon maintained his professional demeanor while watching the clock. Finally, as the station announced the beginning of the maintenance cycle, Hoon excused himself. He met Lin at a predetermined location near the maintenance tunnels. "I have something that might help," she said, showing him a small injector. "But it's untested. I can't guarantee it won't harm her." "We'll give her the choice," Hoon replied. "Better than leaving her here." They navigated through the maintenance passages quickly, using the stolen access card at key junctions. Alarm systems remained offline due to the maintenance cycle, but they would activate again soon. The systems will reset in 3 minutes, Hoon explained as they reached Nera's chamber. Lin worked to disable the containment field while Hoon stood guard. Nera's skin brightened when she saw them. "You came back," she whispered, her voice weaker than before. "We're getting you out of here," Hoon said, approaching her carefully. The pheromone effect hit him again, but he was better prepared this time. Lin analyzed the medical readouts. "They've increased the dosage again. Your system is saturated with the compound." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Nera's skin turned ashen. "He knows," she gasped. "Dam knows." The door hissed open, revealing Dam with 2 guards and an injection gun. "Step away from the subject," he ordered, his 3 eyes narrowing at the humans. "The maintenance cycle isn't complete," Hoon said, buying time. "How did you override the security protocols?" Dam's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "I am the security protocol, Lieutenant. Did you think we wouldn't monitor our most valuable asset?" Lin stepped forward. "You're killing her with these injections. As a medical professional, I protest this treatment." "Your protest is noted and irrelevant," Dam replied coldly. "The final phase begins today. Our military awaits the completed formula." Dan raised the injection gun, aiming at Nera. "This dose will maximize pheromone production beyond previous levels. Step aside or my guards will remove you." Hoon lunged forward instead, knocking the weapon from Dam's hand. The compound is lethal at that concentration. The guards moved to restrain him, but Hoon's combat training gave him the advantage. He disabled one guard with a precise strike to the neck, then used the falling body as a shield against the second guard. Lin retrieved the injection gun and quickly examined it. "This is nearly triple the previous dose," she said in horror. Dam backed toward the door. "Reinforcements are coming. You have nowhere to go." Nera's containment field flickered as Lin completed the override sequence. The Celestial collapsed forward, her weakened legs unable to support her after weeks suspended in the field. Hoon caught her, immediately feeling the intense wave of pheromones released by her direct contact. "Can you move?" he asked, fighting through the disorienting effect. "I will try," Nera whispered, her skin cycling through colors as she struggled to control her body. Lin administered her experimental treatment. "This might help neutralize the compounds temporarily. We need to reach our shuttle." Dan watched with scientific interest. "Fascinating. The human female seems almost immune to the pheromone effect. Is it gender-specific in your species?" "It's called basic decency," Lin snapped, helping support Nera from the other side. They moved toward the maintenance tunnel, but Dan blocked their path. "The subject cannot leave. This research is vital to Vortex security." Hoon hesitated, unwilling to kill even someone as cruel as Dam. Nera solved the problem herself, summoning her remaining strength to release a concentrated pulse of energy that sent Dam staggering backward. "That was not in your file," Hoon said in surprise. "Celestials have many abilities," Nera replied weakly. "Some we keep private." They escaped into the maintenance tunnel as station-wide alerts announced security breaches. Hoon led them through a complex route designed to avoid main corridors where reinforcements would be searching. As they fled toward the docking bay, Nera's steps faltered. The accumulated toxins were reaching critical levels in her system. "I cannot," she whispered as her legs gave way. Hoon lifted her into his arms. Through their physical contact, their mental link strengthened. He felt her pain and fear, but also her determination. "The diplomatic shuttle has medical equipment," Lin said. "If we can get her there, I might stabilize her condition." They reached a junction where they would need to cross an open corridor to reach the docking bay. Guards patrolled the area, blocking their path. "Distraction," Lin suggested, removing a small device from her pocket. Standard issue for hazardous environments. She activated it and tossed it down a side corridor. The device released a harmless but disorienting smoke cloud, triggering environmental alarms. The guards rushed toward the apparent threat, leaving their path temporarily clear. They sprinted across the open space, Hoon carrying Nara while Lin covered their rear. The diplomatic shuttle waited just ahead, its access ramp already lowered for the scheduled departure. Almost there, Hoon encouraged Nara, whose consciousness was fading. Her skin had developed alarming black patches where the compounds had damaged her cellular structure. As they reached the shuttle ramp, a final obstacle appeared. Director Cole stood waiting, a weapon aimed at them. "This is a diplomatic incident," Cole stated flatly. "Return the research subject, and perhaps your government can negotiate terms." "She's a person, not a subject," Hoon replied, still holding Nara protectively. "And what you're doing violates at least 7 interstellar treaties." Cole's weapon didn't waver. Politics are flexible. Research is eternal. Before anyone could move, Nara reached out weakly, touching Cole's mind directly. The Vortec director froze, his 3 eyes widening as Nara shared the full experience of her captivity with him. The moment of connection gave Lin the opportunity to disable Cole with a precise injection to his neck. "Medical override," she explained as the director collapsed unconscious. "He'll recover with a terrible headache and hopefully a conscience." They boarded the shuttle just as reinforcements arrived at the docking bay. Lin initiated the launch sequence while Hoon placed Nara on the medical bed. "Stay with me," Hoon urged as they escaped the station. "We're clear now." But Nara's condition was deteriorating rapidly. The compounds had reached toxic levels in her system, and Lin's temporary treatment was failing. "The damage is too extensive," Lin said, checking the medical readouts. "Her body can't process the toxins fast enough." Through their mental link, Hoon felt Nara's life force ebbing. They had freed her from captivity, but freedom might come too late to save her. Alarms blared as the diplomatic shuttle broke away from Vortex Station. Lin worked the controls with practiced efficiency, while Hoon stayed with Nara in the medical bay. 3 Vortec pursuit vessels launched, their weapons systems powering up. "They're hailing us," Lin called from the cockpit, demanding we return their research subject immediately. Hoon didn't look up from Nara's side. Her breathing had become shallow, her luminescent skin flickering between sickly green and alarming black patches. The medical scanner showed her vital signs weakening by the minute. "Tell them we've discovered illegal biological weapons research and the imprisonment of a protected sentient species," Hoon replied. "Transmit the evidence files to Earth Command and copy the Galactic Council." Lin nodded and began the transmission. "That might slow them down politically, but those ships are still gaining on us." Hoon studied the medical readouts with growing concern. The desire compounds were breaking down Nara's cellular structure faster than her natural healing could repair it. Lin's temporary treatment had bought them time, but not enough. "Stay with me," Hoon urged as he piloted the shuttle away from the station. Nara lay shivering on the medical cot, her luminescence flickering dangerously. The Vortec vessels pursued them through the asteroid field. Despite Lin's skilled piloting, the diplomatic shuttle wasn't designed for combat maneuvers. A warning blast from the lead Vortex ship rocked their shuttle. "Shields at 60%, Lin reported. "We can't outrun them to the jump point." Hoon activated the emergency beacon, broadcasting their situation to all nearby vessels. "Help is coming, but not soon enough for Nara," he said, returning to her side. Through their mental link, weakened but still present, he felt Nara's acceptance of her fate. She was glad to die free rather than remain a captive. The thought tore at Hoon's heart. "There's one option," Hoon said suddenly, preparing a transfusion kit from the medical supplies. "My blood contains enzymes that might neutralize the compounds." Lin looked alarmed. "That's incredibly risky. Human and celestial biology are completely different." "The compounds affected me differently because of something in my biochemistry," Hoon explained, already inserting the collection needle into his arm. "It's her only chance." "The difference is in our nucleotide structure," Lin said, checking her medical scanner. "But the procedure could kill you both if it triggers an immune response." Nara's eyes fluttered open, her gaze finding Hoon's. "No," she whispered. "Too dangerous for you." Hoon smiled gently. "My choice. Trust me." Another blast from the vortex ships jolted the shuttle. The lights flickered momentarily as power redistributed to maintain shields. "2 more minutes until they can lock tractor beams," Lin warned. Working quickly, Hoon completed the blood collection and prepared the transfusion. Lin modified the medical system to filter and process his blood, separating the specific enzymes that might neutralize the toxic compounds. "I've isolated the enzyme," Lin announced, "but without proper testing." "Do it," Hoon insisted. Lin administered the treatment directly into Nera's circulation. For several agonizing moments, nothing happened. Then Nera's body arched in pain, her skin flaring with brilliant white light that filled the medical bay. "She's going into shock," Lin said, checking the readings. "Her system is fighting the foreign material." Hoon took Nera's hand, strengthening their mental connection. Through their link, he projected calm and stability, trying to help her body accept the treatment rather than reject it. "Something's happening," Lin said in wonder. "The compounds are breaking down at the molecular level." Outside, a new alarm sounded. "Tractor beam locking," Lin reported. "We're out of time." Suddenly, a massive shadow fell over their shuttle. A deep voice boomed over their communication system. "Vortex vessels, this is Captain Pack of the Earth Alliance cruiser Horizon. Stand down immediately or face consequences." The Earth reinforcements had arrived, responding to their emergency beacon. The vortex ships hesitated, then broke off their pursuit. "Perfect timing," Lin said with relief. "Tell them we need immediate medical assistance for a celestial suffering from chemical toxicity." Hours later, as the rescue ships escorted them toward Earth space, Nera opened her eyes. The black patches on her skin had faded, replaced by healthy luminescence. Her skin glowed a peaceful blue as she took Hoon's hand. "You saved me," she said, her voice stronger than before. Hoon smiled. "Actually, it was your own biology that did the hard work. My enzymes just gave it a fighting chance." Captain Pack entered the medical bay, his uniform crisp despite the emergency deployment. "Lieutenant, we've reviewed your evidence files. The Galactic Council is already convening an emergency session about the vortex violations." "The Council will hear of this," promised the captain. "Reviewing the evidence of vortex violations, what they were developing goes against every principle of civilized space." Nera sat up slowly, her movement still careful but steadier than before. "There will be others who think as Dam does. The formula may already exist elsewhere. That's why your testimony will be crucial," Pack explained. "As a victim of their experiments, your account carries legal weight that our evidence alone does not." "I will speak," Nera agreed, her skin shifting to a determined gold color. "For all those who might suffer if this weapon is deployed." The doctors aboard the Horizon had continued what Lin started, developing a more refined treatment to purge the remaining compounds from Nera's system. While the damage would take time to fully heal, her prognosis was good. One doctor, however, made an unexpected discovery during her examination. "There's something unusual happening at the cellular level," he explained to Hoon and Nera. "The human enzyme has bonded with your genetic material in a way we've never seen before. It's creating a sort of symbiotic relationship." "Is it dangerous?" Hoon asked with concern. The doctor shook his head. "Not dangerous, but permanent. Your biologies are now linked in a fundamental way. You'll likely maintain a certain level of connection indefinitely." Nera's skin glowed with a soft purple that Hoon had come to recognize as contemplation. "Among my people, such connections are rare but valued. We call it shared path." Later, as Earth grew larger in the view screen, Hoon and Nera stood together in the observation deck. The medical staff had cleared her to move around the ship as her strength returned. "What will you do now?" Hoon asked. "Your people must be searching for you." Nera nodded. "They are. I can sense them at the edges of my awareness. But first, I must help ensure the vortex weapon never threatens anyone else." "And after that?" Hoon pressed gently. Nera turned to him, her skin shifting to a color he hadn't seen before. A deep rose with silver highlights. Through their connection, he felt her uncertainty and hope. "That depends," she said softly. "Our paths are linked now, in ways neither of us fully understands. Where that leads, we'll discover together," Hoon finished, offering his hand. As Nera took it, their joined minds filled with possibilities, stars and worlds neither had yet seen, adventures waiting beyond the horizon, and the unique understanding of two very different beings whose fates had become unexpectedly intertwined. On Earth, the Galactic Council representatives were already gathering. The evidence from Vortex Station would change the balance of power in their sector of space, but for Hoon and Nera, the greater journey was just beginning, one that would take them across the stars as they explored what it meant to share not just a path, but a future.